Hi there everybody, my name is Kate and welcome to my channel, Trinergy Awakens Naturally. I am once again on my way to school. However, school oftentimes starts long before I hit the 3D classroom. We're in some other class right at the moment. Keeping up with what's relevant in the news currently, there's a lot going on, and there's going to be a lot going on. That's the state of existence that the Earth is in right now, is a whole lot of shake-up and wake-up of some very old paradigm that's being destroyed, and it's upsetting a whole bunch of people. So let's get to it. I often talk about the polarity of living on Earth, the up and down, left and right, black and white. Absolutism is what it turns into, unfortunately, when we get very, very polarized in our thinking. It's rooted very heavily, can be very rooted in the fight or flight mode that is the least evolved part of us. Fight or flight is exactly what you already know that it is. I'm going to either load and go, or I'm just going to stay and play here. Load and go often looks like the flight thing. I'm going to just run away. I can't deal with this. It doesn't necessarily mean that we literally run away from something, but we just shut down emotionally. Our brain just, we lose all cognitive contact, and we can't think in the midst of an emergency. And there's constantly an opportunity to be drawn into a state of emergency, especially now. So the fight mode, of course, is the opposite reaction, where you're not going to tell me what to do, you're not going to take me down, and I'm going to, punch you right to the ground. We're going to blows with this, and one of us is not coming out of it alive. That's pretty primitive. It's lizard brain, and it has nothing to do with the reptilian race. I'm not suggesting that. And it's really a part of an old paradigm. It's part of the age of Pisces, where, that's how we learned how to deal with things, and our nervous system learned how to deal with things, is when our intuition gets a little bit, hackled with something, we start getting that, something doesn't feel right. Well, unfortunately, the fight or flight response, neither one of those, when we engage that, employ that, and deploy that routinely, or it becomes a common state of being for us where we do one or the other, and we never reach a state of balance, we really are not, using our highest mind or our highest capabilities. So the run rabbit run mode, or the, park in the dark mode, pardon me, neither one of those serves us, because running away from confrontation, feelings of dis-ease, or discomfort, or staying and playing in places, or parking in the dark, believing we're terrible, or believing that we've got no power, they're both states of victimization. That now is the time when our spirit calls us through many, many, many mechanisms, an endless number of them. It calls us to find a better way to deal with this, friend, because either polarity, we live in a polarized existence here on Earth. However, experiencing Earth on either one of those poles constantly just doesn't feel good, and it feels less good with each update we go through, with each energetic infusion, with each sunburp, with each celestial movement of planets and other bodies, with higher dimensional beings supporting this, with all kinds of collective consciousness on the Earth that's breaking apart, and people are waking up. You have all states of that chaos going on that is created when we're trying to figure out, wait a minute, this is the way I used to do this, I either did this or this, and I'm not able to do that as comfortably as I used to. Those old coping mechanisms, we find for many, many people that the old ways of coping, the old ways of doing, the old ways of being just don't work anymore. And paradigms and systems are breaking down, which means that whole entire organizations, governments, understandings, religions, spiritual practices, families, relationships of all kinds, all dynamics, it's all being challenged, because there's not one part of this puzzle that's going to receive some bit of upgrade information or awareness that doesn't affect the rest of the puzzle. It doesn't mean that everybody within that puzzle understanding is going to receive that information in the highest form. We can deny it. That's our free choice, which allows us to deny what is really best serving us. We can continue on with our old paradigm and our old way. It's just that it's becoming more and more uncomfortable to do so. It's sort of like having a flip phone or a Crackberry from, a zillion years ago in technology that yeah, you can continue to hang on to your BlackBerry from 19 whatever or early 2000s. You can. It's just that as we continue to upgrade the technology, the spiritual technology, it doesn't really serve and it doesn't really work well. And so we're trying to communicate with beings that are really here for our best interest, really here for our best interest. The whole system is based on really supporting humankind's evolution as Earth is going through her upgrades and what have you. But if we're not really communicating with those energies or tapping into them in a very balanced and principled way, we're kind of meeting some resistance everywhere. We're hitting roadblocks. We're experiencing that karmic return, or the consequence of, I refuse to upgrade. I want to stay back here because this is what's comfortable for me, is my old crackberry. This is the way I like to be. I don't want to look inside of me. I don't want to change my way of doing things. I don't want to be different. And I'm often, puzzled by people that if you're doing something that knowingly hurts, and you say that, you live in anger, you live in fear, you live in this, or you live in that dark place, why would you want to do that continuously? Well, it's out of fear, and fear is attached to ego. Ego is very afraid of losing its identity, and those polarizations happen when that ego part of us, which is the false part of us, the ego isn't a real thing. It's just it's a bunch of platitudes and latitudes that we've given ourselves to create some identity. However, that's not who and what we are at our core. And when that part of us gets challenged, especially if we've been super duper attached to it with our titles, our roles, our accomplishments, our this or that, or we overly attach to the failure that we are, we believe that lie. Either one is a lie. However, when we overly identify with any one of those identifications, or the personification of our ego, however it's dripping out and slipping out, leaking, squeaking, and ooh, not so much sneaking anymore, however that's coming out, when we really, really, really are just not willing to detach from that and believe something more, then we end up in that very absolute thinking, that very black and white thinking, that linear thinking that doesn't embrace the whole entire picture, and it allows us to be in run rabbit run mode or in park in the dark mode. And many of us, have gone through this experience and we vacillate between them. However, often, we kind of predominantly do one or the other. And people that reside in that park in the dark stuff, it's often related to shame and feeling guilty and feeling, very bad, that we've bought the lie from other ego personalities dictating to us what we are. We've bought into the story that we're worthless, we're bad, we're failures, we're, this, that, or the other. Whatever somebody else told us, we were willing to believe that because that is the programming. That's the old age of Pisces. That makes sense. However, it's time. Spirit is calling us on every level, through nature, through spiritual engagement, in prayer, in meditation, in yoga, in how we eat, how we communicate, how we ring bells, how we do whatever we're doing. There is no place where spirit or energy is not. And if we are really not embracing the idea that Earth has gone through upgrades, we've gone through, many, many different evolutions of this process, especially over the last, 100 years, and definitely the last 10 years or 20 years has been incredible. And it just keeps picking up pace and picking up intensity. And if we just continue to deny, we continue to fry. And people that look like they're very successful are hanging on by a very tentative thread, many of them, because their success, if it was built on a foundation that's faulty, on that sandy stuff of age of Pisces, man, that was built on aggression, manipulation, ego control, and that kind of stuff, that's the very thing that's losing its ground, because it wasn't built on something sound. It wasn't built on something that's actually permanently installed. It was built on an old idea that doesn't exist anymore. If we think about the evolution of the soul, the evolution of any process, the evolution of any living being, the evolution of any idea, the evolution of anything we can imagine, it's about the continued growth, renewal, and understanding of a higher understanding of itself, or of the process in general. And if we don't really understand that, that means we don't really understand ourselves. We were were forced to go through puberty. We didn't get to miss puberty. We were forced to go through the birth process. Once we were engaged in it, we were forced into that. We were pushed. And yes, we can bag out and dime out at any point. We do have ultimate authority over that, whether we choose to exercise it consciously or not encouraging one way or the other. I'm just saying we do have that sovereignty, but we do not understand it well enough to know that if we understand our sovereignty on every level, then we understand that we're pushed through these experiences and we're made better by them. We're birthed into the world, and then we have the ability to keep on going through those pushes. Puberty, it takes us out of one realm and into another of more knowing, more understanding, like the metamorphosis of a butterfly. The butterfly doesn't really have a choice unless it chooses to just leave the earth experience altogether. If it chooses to stay, then it chooses to play in a whole new way of no longer seeing itself in a worm state or a lesser state of consciousness. It goes through, the soupy, liquefied, icky part, and it comes out on the other side with a brand new heart. It comes out with brand new colors and brilliance that it didn't even know. All it knew back then was, I'm hungry, friend, I gotta go eat, and I think I gotta go rest. It probably had no knowing ahead of time that, hey, this is probably 11:11 going to kind of hurt a little bit or a lot. And, on the other side of it, it just knew instinctively that I've got to go through this. Just like puberty, man. We could be forewarned of it. However, nobody can tell us how we're going to experience that stuff. Nobody could have warned us how it would be for us personally. It's a matter of answering the call. Did I hear that call to puberty? Well, yes, actually I did. And I didn't have any choice in the matter. The same is true of our spirit. When our spirit is going through some sort of an evolution or a change or a growth, a puberty type experience where we're growing up and knowing more, we're called to that. And that part, we can turn that off. We cannot turn off puberty. However, we can turn off, deny, turn away from, and really act like that part of my life doesn't exist. I don't hear that calling. Or we misinterpret it through wrong understanding of our ego, that our calling is about manipulating or pushing or bullying or really, really aggressively shouting our opinion about things or our agenda, especially when it comes to spiritual matters. That's one of great contention for many people. And we will find ways to deny our own selves. We'll find ways to deny other people. And the polarity of that is that we can't reside legitimately, happily, and holistically and organically in our most natural state of being by trying to live on either side of that. And so coming from that place of fight or flight where I either run, rabbit, run, or I feed and breed here where I park in the dark, neither one of those. We have need to bounce in between them and stay right here. And when we're called to those states of consciousness where, do you want to go that way or this way, or shall we pull in right here and be able to get that more objective view, the one that says, hey, I can take a peek at you and I don't have to fry and die over this. I don't have to be completely mind blown. It's not an instant, we just want it and it just happens. We do have to develop that skill, but it comes very firstly with having the courage to admit that I may not be expressing the most beautiful way that I could be. I may not be showing up in my most brilliant form that I could be. This may not be the most beautiful part of me that I'm expressing. And if you have people that are in positions of power, no matter what level they are, I'm not talking about just, people that look like they're in positions of power. We have people in the family, we have people in a job, we have people where there's a power differential that somebody really likes, they enjoy that position of authority, then they might not be so willing to give it up so easily. And I'm encouraging you that if you're in those polarized states, that's a problem, because we're going to continue to find that living or trying to live or trying to exist and push and squish that agenda, it really no longer serves 1414, and it hurts us. It hurts us so much, and it's so much kinder to our own selves and to others to allow that worm to turn into a butterfly or ignore its journey. However, I'm more concerned with what I need to do is notice the worm parts of me, which is not, feeding and breeding in that dark park thing, it's a matter of what's the part of me that's the least evolved, and how can I get that going into a more caterpillar experience that's morphing into the butterfly. How can I do that? How can I turn those parts of myself that are least evolved into the ones that can be most evolved, and understand that when we get to that butterfly state, it's going to be needing to go through another metamorphosis at some point. This is an ongoing process. We don't ever land anywhere and really rightfully be able to say that I've arrived. That's not true of an evolutionary process, and Earth is going through the most fantastical evolutionary process ever. So I encourage you to reach inside your own bag of wonder, 1515, and find out what's in there. What can I create? Where can I go with this? And how can I best support my caterpillar experience through the butterfly emergence that I deserve on every level? And get rid of every devil on every level by acknowledging that what we would call the devil are the most unevolved parts of ourselves or others. We don't have to worry about others. We only have to worry about ourselves. That how can I address that? How can I most easily, kindly, and humanely, and compassionately, lovingly, and forgivingly deal with those parts of myself that I consider to be wormy, or more kindly understood, less evolved than that butterfly part of me, which is the more brilliant part that I care to be. So take care of yourselves, whatever part of the day you're in, friend, and get within your skin, because you're divine. Oh, it is so, so brilliant and so, so fine. Take care of your beautiful selves, and I will see you again next time. Goodbye, friends.